Right.
Yeah.
So the reason I went to live in Asia was because I started to understand how powerful the way of thinking in cultures is in controlling your ability to see reality. So being brought up as a Catholic and looking at people whose brains were completely controlled by the culture and completely unable to think outside of it, I just thought, hang on a minute, most of the problems with science will be caused by the same fact, and they turned out to be true.
Right.
Most of the problems in industry are caused by the fact that we just copy tradition. We don't work from basic principles. So when I was working on the problem of turbulence inside jet engines, I realized I had to go and work in Asia to be able to solve that problem.
Right. Oh, okay.
The West would have no idea as to how to describe turbulence because it's not explained by any physics anywhere.
Right.
So that's the big deal. That if turbulence in air, which is the same physical material, that as it flows over a wing is obeying the laws of physics, why does it appear to stop obeying the laws of physics? The answer is it's not. It's still obeying the laws of physics, but the laws of physics has another layer called chaos, which is a completely different set of laws on top of the predictable physics. And it's the relationship between chaos and order, or physics, which is what's important, not one or the other.
Right, okay. Which is you speak about the pair and the triplet a lot. That is that's a pair, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And the triplet is the relationship between
the triplet is the pair is predictable outcomes from classical physics, completely unpredictable outcomes from chaotic physics, but the triplet is probable outcomes from quantum physics.
Right, okay.
So 3 kinds of physics which come as a pair and a triplet. Classical, predictable. Quantum, probable. Chaos, unpredictable.
Yes.
The same pair and a triplet of kinds of physics, and you only need those 3 kinds of physics to then explain the emergence of order and complexity, because order and complexity cannot come from either quantum physics or classical physics.
No.
Classical physics is based upon systems which seek equilibrium only.
Right.
Quantum physics is based upon systems which have probabilistic outcomes but can't lead into order. A relationship between chaos and the other kinds of physics do produce systems which become more ordered and complex. So that's a very, very different way of looking at things. And the Japanese guy actually has a name for these sort of ethereal relationships, and he calls them qualia.
Right, okay.
So sorry.
Closest to the truth video, the latest video,
It's not the latest one. The guy is called Ken Moji.
Ken Moji.
And I think it's the second to last one.
Right.
Mogi.
Bear with me a minute.
The fact that Western people believe in one God and Eastern people believe in as many as you want.
Oh, okay.
And Western people can't get out of that way of thinking. But Eastern people are already out of it because they were never in it in the first place.
What's his name?
Ken Moji.
Ken Moji. Oh, yeah. What is God? Yeah.
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 So what we've got now is a self-consistent model of the universe, which has parts which cannot be predicted by what you've got with the bits at the beginning. They're completely unpredictable. So they come out of the interplay between the entities. So all human faces that you see come from who just happens to meet up with who.
Mm.
It's not predicted by the physics at the beginning.
No.
But there are plenty of scientists who say that it is until you point that out to them. And then they walk away. They will always walk away in silence.
Right.
So I've written to Robert Kuhn and said this to him and said, look, we've got the mathematics of the relationship between chaos and order. That's what you need to explain biology, because the emergence of ever-increasing complexity needs that mathematics. Because if you lay out the mathematics of the assembly of particle physics, it just happens to be exactly the same as the self-assembly of DNA.
Right, okay.
Which is biology. So biology and particle physics start off using the same mathematics. Biology is simply the self-assembly of very complex systems, which are so complex they need the conservation of information in DNA. You have to conserve the information and put it back into the system.
Yeah.
That's what biology is. It's just matter, but DNA is just matter, but it becomes matter and information.
Right, okay.
And the fact that it's the periodic repeating pattern at the beginning of both of them is based upon prime numbers is not a coincidence.
No.
And that's what's hard for people in the West to accept, is that when I show them the prime numbers building the electron orbital shells, they won't speak about it.
Right. Okay.
So reality is very hard for human beings to get at because their cultural pressures are so strong.
Mm.
So that's really the underpinning of the human condition, is a predisposition to not have to see reality for what it is, but just to copy your own cultural reality and be happy with that, which most people are.
Yeah. So how can this be? I don't know if a change is the right term, but how can we get people to see past their cultural indoctrination? Really, isn't it?
It is cultural indoctrination. I think what it'll be, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a chart with particle physics on the left and genetics on the right, showing that they're exactly the same mathematically. What's remarkable, Darren, is that the atom requires stronger and weaker interactions to interplay with each other. So you've got electromagnetism, then the strong nuclear interaction, which is stronger. You've also got the same thing in genetics because you have dominant and recessive genes, and nobody's seen that.
Right, okay. We have dominant and recessive.
Yeah. So dominant genes always overcome recessive genes. Stronger and weaker. In the atom, it's called a stronger and weaker. In genetics, it's called dominant and recessive, but it's the same principle.
Right.
And nobody's seen it. Until you point it out.
Right, okay.
So I'm going to draw out particle physics at the base of which I've got two different kinds of quarks which change into each other. Two different kinds of leptons, which are neutrinos and electrons, which change into each other. And those two change the quarks into each other. So everything can change into something else. There's four of them.
Okay.
And they change into the triplets of quarks, which make protons and neutrons. In genetics, I've got four base nucleotides, T, A, C, and G, which can change into each other. And they change into the triplets of information called codons. It's exactly pairs and triplets, prime numbers, things that change into each other, forming triplets, which then become units of matter and units of information. And nobody's seen that similarity. So I'm going to draw it out in the chart.
Yeah.
Put them side by side. And then you challenge people to say, well, you need to explain how that's happening. But unless they're challenged directly, they'll always walk away in silence.
Mm.
They won't be challenged in public.
Yeah.
So I think what we need is a media outlet that simply puts me on the spot in public and holds me to account, and keeps holding me to account until somebody can say there's a mistake.
Yeah.
In the last 6 years, that's not happened.
No.
And I will publish anywhere. I will seek any peer review. I'll talk to anybody. And every time I stand up in public, like I did at the college, nobody can say where it goes wrong. So there's got to be this showdown. And until somebody like Robert Kuhn gives me a chance to get in the ring and have the showdown, science will just go on not being done properly.